Soon as, whoops, banana bread.
There you go.
So it's a little after 4:01 on, what is today? The 8th of January, 2012. This is the Josephine County Board of Commissioners convening for a general discussion. Agenda item listed, I guess it's SOS, probably, put on today by Keith Heck. Probably the reason it didn't go out for me, notice if it was missing. We're waiting on Commissioner Walker. We have two cards that I recommend for the board. One is to thank the Friends of the Fairgrounds for their Christmas tree lighting. And then this one, late, but it's condolences for Charlie Morris's passing away. Sorely, S-O-R-E-L-Y, sorely missed.
S-O-R-E-L, yeah.
Spelled poorly, so. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
Made my trip to Center Point and back. Just got back.
Excellent. How'd it go?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
All right. We had a good meeting today.
We're sending two cards if you like. One is a thank you note to the Friends of the Fairgrounds for the tree lighting. And the other one is a condolence letter to the Morrison family. I can't believe we didn't do that sooner, but we just, better late than never.
Okay. Thank you.
This is great. It's nice to have this is where I thought things were too, so.
Just quick, anybody that's up there will help out all of you.
Sure.
Looking for
Oh, you've seen? Everybody has one.
Is this the reason why you were shutting me today when I was up there?
I shun you always.
Okay.
At least I didn't swipe your preference.
That's right.
Did you leave room for me to sign my name under? My mom, she writes great things.
You've got the whole upper page right there.
She does that. My dad always says, and Denny. She didn't leave me very much room to do that. She's done this before. She knows exactly. Just get it down to the bottom.
You can either squish it in right here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or you can take the whole page.
Turn over right on the back.
Yeah, you got the front and back. All there.
Too many traces down.
We could say volume 2F, right?
We can just write nothing. All right. So Commissioner Heck put on the agenda securing our safety and their proposal as part of the hearing coming up on the 18th. So I think Tom is here to kind of go over maybe facilitating what it is that we're going to be looking for as far as questions from the proposed departments associated with that, to try to get a pretty good idea on numbers and a number of different things.
This question had come up for the admin meeting on the 11th. What you want from that is on the agenda for that day.
Right.
And what do you need that day, and do you need anybody in particular to talk? Do you want department heads to talk about their departments, or do you want SOS or both, or what do you want, so that I guess that's kind of what the question is.
Commissioner Heck?
I agree.
It's like Harold never left.
Obviously, the more information that we can have, the better off it is. I think one of the things that SOS has got a burden to do, and I think is being addressed at least, is to separate out the action item, the accomplishing of the action item, from SOS itself. Because even in this well-meant effort to talk about this taxing district or whatever, that has become synonymous with SOS, and so it's, and I think there does need to be some separation between those two. But all of that is for the more information that I can have, certainly, I think the board can have, the better off we are. Because the worst thing that can happen, and there's sort of ignited to some degree, is that a scintilla of information now begins to take on a life of its own, and that becomes the body of the argument rather than what is really the issue. So, whatever, the more we can have, the better off it would be.
Go ahead.
Okay. My understanding is that SOS has prepared this information that they would like to move forward with these specific departments. I would like to see from those departments how they think that would provide the funding for their services, exactly what it would provide. Because the public's going to ask that question. The public's going to say, okay, if we approve this, what is it going to provide from the district attorney's office? Is it going to provide 2 DAs, 3 DAs, assistant DAs, or whatever? Also, I understand it's for the civil service, the court civil service. What is court civil service? I mean, I know what it is, but the public may not know what court civil service is. What does that actually provide, and to what level? As to the jail as well. So if someone was from each of those areas would come in and say, this is what we would expect from this measure passing, or from the district being there. Someone also needs to explain exactly what a district is. There's a lot of misinformation about a district. A district is not an extension of county government. We know that. We've all worked with districts. But the general perception is that a district is another extension of county government. It actually is an entity of its own, comparable to RCC district, fire district, whatever. And people need to have that made clear to them that would be governed by their own board, that they would elect those board members, that any increase in the future would have to be voted upon those members of that district. It wouldn't have anything to do with the board voting any increases or decreases, whatever were to happen in the future. So I think if you had someone representing each of those departments, and someone representing or someone knowledgeable in districts, and you may even want to have someone come in from some of the districts, maybe someone come from a fire district or someone come from a school district that explains how their board works. However you want to structure that, but I think those are things that really need to be clarified at these hearings so that people aren't thinking this is an extension of county government and that the commissioners would still have some say in it, because the last word we will have to say is whether we put it on the ballot or not. That will be the last say we will have as far as governing a district if it were to pass.
Well, the structure that we're proposing would probably mirror the 4-H district. You can't have a separate district coming in here using county equipment and resources. So we'd be the governing body, but you're absolutely right. We go out as the Board of Commissioners, convene as the 4-H district. For the
And it would
purposes
be
of
the
passing
same.
that budget,
Right.
we would do the same.
It would be the
Yeah.
same for this.
And that might be a good one to have representing
I think-
people is the 4-H district. If
That's
someone
the
came in from a,
the closest
a 4-H district that would be the closest one, and yet, being,
It's tough because we're the board for that, and we probably understand
Well, I'm
that
wondering
distinction the best.
if Steve Rich is the best
Steve-
person
Steve-
to talk to about
Got that one
that
down.
part of
Mhm.
the aspect. I guess what I need to know today is what you want at Friday. Do you want all these people at Friday's meeting is the question, because
okay, are you talking about the 18th?
the admin
okay.
meeting on the 11th.
Mhm.
I certainly would expect that at the hearings there will be people,
Yeah.
because there will be public comment and all of that, for and against at that point in time. But do you want anyone here for informational purposes on the
I
11th?
think for me, SOS needs to be there to make this presentation
Okay.
publicly. And then I don't know that I need the departments there at that one, but they need to prepare based on that. Because I frankly haven't seen the proposal yet. It hasn't been formalized. It hasn't been brought to the board. They're going to do that, I guess, at their meeting this evening. They bring that presentation to us, and then within that week, before the 18th, the departments will have an opportunity to present, make a presentation, and prepare to do that on the 18th, because they need to address every aspect of what we're asking for, that the public's going to ask for, and that we're going to need to know to make a decision to move it forward at that point, because I think that's what we're supposed to be doing. And Steve's going to be prepared to talk on that. What is the 18th? What are we needing to do at that point? And what's the process going to be for going forward after that? What does it mean for our decision to move forward on the 18th? Well, what do we have to have packaged? Does it have to be a precise number? Do the departments have to be specifically listed to what funding level? Or are we specifically saying, in those, out of the proposal from SOS, that we're going to, yes, you're going to get 2 district attorneys out of this.
Right.
Or are we going to have the discretion based on a pool of revenue that says this is how we propose to allocate it? Future boards can, future boards of
and that's
directors
a
for the
question.
district can change
They
that.
would make
That's
that
a question that I've asked Steve as
Yeah.
well, is can the ballot measure actually say X number for this part and X number for that part, and be that specific within there and lock it in?
Or do we want to do that?
And I know. I don't know whether that's even doable at this point.
I think it's probably a number for general services to be provided for. It's probably pretty vague.
Were you talking about a dollar amount or percentage? Because that.
Well, it really wouldn't matter, because it's the same thing. I mean, if you have a specific dollar amount and you can either allocate it by the cents or by the percent, it's going to be the same, and it's a permanent rate. It can't change.
Well, that's why I was thinking that maybe it should be stated as a percent, because if you put a percentage in there and at some point in the future they increase the rate, then it would just be allocated according to that percentage unless they voted to change it.
I think I'm thinking of something different.
Except that the permanent rate can't change. So once it is, it is.
So
And you
The
can't.
maximum permanent rate.
well, the board always
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Maximum.
Okay, yeah.
to set the rate.
Yeah.
We do that. But I thought what you were trying to clarify was whether or not it was like the old library district that requires $1.1 million. And that rate certainly does change. I mean, it isn't always 28 cents.
Right, and that
Goes
would be,
down as property
that would be
values
more like
increase.
if you were doing a levy and you say, I need to raise this X number of dollars.
That was a permanent tax rate at $1.1 million in the past.
Yeah.
That under Measure 50 was rolled into our 58 cents per therm because that's where it was at that particular year that Measure 50 was passed. So that's, I don't know if you were asking that, but that's actually a pretty good question, whether or not we're using a static, we need $6 million, or whether or not we're saying it's $1.42 per thousand, because those are definitely different.
Yeah, you don't want to say the dollar amount if you're going to do the per thousand, the number per thousand.
I bet we can't. We have to do.
You have to do a dollar amount.
We have to do a dollar amount. I think Measure 50
because it's a permanent rate that
changed
stays in place.
Yeah.
Now there are some types of levies where you say I need to raise X number of dollars, and then you look at the assessed value and divide it to figure out the rate.
Equates out every year.
So that changes from time to time.
I think it goes to his point about how we can set the rate. If you're given $1.1 million, we don't get the discretion to set that.
Right.
It's set.
So we need to
set
know.
the dollar per thousand amount.
Yeah, we need to know from you and from the attorney fee exactly how that would have to be determined.
Yeah, I think that's good.
For the district to go forward, do we have to decide
and how do
dollar
we
amount,
write
rate,
in
or percentage?
the governance structure? I mean, how is that written into the 4-H district that it's it is that it's automatically the sitting board of commissioners.
And I think that's the same for this. Steve probably could answer that better, but I understand that the type of district it is, that it's automatically the board.
Well, I think we've got SOS needs to be there to make the presentation. They'll be given time to do that, and then of course Steve Rich, because we obviously got a lot of questions.
And that's for the meeting on the 11th.
Yeah.
I thought you were asking about the hearings.
Yeah. No, that's
why I jumped in with the hearings.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a bad idea sometimes to work backwards.
Yeah, well, that's what I was doing.
But that's fine too, because what you're saying is that the department people need to be prepared.
They need to be preparing for it. Yeah.
Although I think that Steve needs to sit here and tell us definitely. People here, taxing district, that's on infinitum. Can that, the same way it's been voted in, can it be voted out by the majority of the people?
Yes, it can.
But I'm saying that needs to be clearly said by the legal counsel, that we know that is indeed a done deal. So, yeah, I think that can be answered. So this kind of stuff, anecdotally referring to it.
So, just a suggestion, maybe if you've got questions like that you want to, pose to him, be prepared ahead of time.
It'd be nice.
So that he will know to be ready to answer.
I think he's got most of these probably in his hip pocket, but it'd be better if we don't catch him off guard.
We did all this in 2008 when we put the 2 districts on, and it laid it all out real clearly.
Great.
So I will contact SOS and see that they have somebody here on Friday then.
I don't know what's necessarily proposed in the district. I think I do. But I would recommend that those departments be invited to attend the admin meeting to sit in and hear the presentation so that they're totally in the loop on what was said at that meeting, and they can prepare their presentation accordingly.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
I have been in contact with them as to what their needs are at different levels.
Great.
So, get that.
Well, thank you, Connie.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Anything
Thank
else?
you.
Great.
See you later.
Thank you.
Mr. Hack.
Yes, sir.
Anything to report?
Got any report?
Got any issues?
I've got more issues. No, I don't have.
They're here for 4 years. So.
Yeah.
A day and a half. Supposed to be.
I got issues, man. No, I don't have. There's nothing outside that one. I think that should be made public, so that we know that it is here. As far as that, whatever's in there.
What is in here?
That's what I'm referring to. That's what she was referring to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's just...
It's just an email requesting
this basically this meeting. So.
For clarification on if there's anything necessary. That's it. Planning for the Thursday admin meeting, preparing for the hearing on the 18th. So, that's great. Was that it?
Okay. I met with Diane Hoover yesterday at the Department of Health, Public Health, and of course one of the things that we talked about was that public health receives not enough money, of course, from the county to operate, and because it is a health department, they have to provide, they can't turn anyone away. If someone comes in for health services, they can't turn them away. They say, I don't have the money to pay. They still have to treat them or provide the immunization or whatever. So that puts that department in a very difficult situation. And one of the things that has caused some difficulties with them in their billing, actually getting billing for the services that they do provide, is that when there were cutbacks in employees last year, because they were moved around. They lost the people that had the expertise, so they've had to retrain, which has caused some difficulties in getting some of the billing done.
It's a huge deal. It's not even a cut, so you've got a department that's in the black.
Yeah.
They're good to go, but the department next to you gets cut. And
So they get cut, they move
Bumps.
the personnel around, they
Yep.
bump them around, and I guarantee you, medical coding is something you don't learn overnight. And if you don't do it right, you don't get paid. It's as simple as that. So they've had some really difficult times trying to get these people back up to speed to the ones that took the places of the ones that were transferred out or laid off. And so she has worked on the position descriptions to try to alleviate that situation in the future. And of course, with the changes coming in the healthcare system in the country, she's on the board of the Care, what's it called? CC,
Community Care Organization.
Care Organization, CCOs.
She's on the Citizen Advisory Committee for that, the CAC?
She's on that, yeah.
Well, no, do we have a position? No, mental health has a position on the actual board of the CCO, but I don't think we do from public health standpoint.
Well, she said she has a position on one of the committees with the CCO.
there's somebody drew me the bubbles of it.
Yeah.
There's the main board,
There's the main board.
CCO, then there's a community advisory board, and then I think there's a technical advisory board.
Right.
And we're over here on the community advisory board, which actually was a big sticking point for me, but I don't know how we got resolve on that to feel okay, because we're a huge component of what the CCO is supposed to be accomplishing. What we don't do is we don't bring a whole lot of money to the table as far as a funding stream to provide for that patient care on there, so that's how we got saddled over.
But because most of our money is government-based, you know, for the Well Children's programs and the reproductive health programs, it's all government money. It's either federal or state. So we are pretty much enmeshed in that. So she is attending those meetings. She is participating. The other thing I'd like to mention about that is that they have tried to adjust their hours and days of service to help to conserve on staffing, because they're spread very thin as far as staffing and supervision.
So they're adjusting their office hours, or just
no, not their office hours, just days that they provide certain services.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
They don't provide certain services every day. They provide certain services one day or 2 days or whatever.
That's
So
great.
she's tried to do that to help consolidate as far as supplies and costs of providing those services. And of course, one of the mandated things is the reproductive health from the state. And I think I remember hearing this before. We only get like $11,000 from the state, and we spend 6 times that. So
$60,000 or $80,000.
$66,000, I think it was in 2012 or something. So we do have some issues up there as far as the funding. So we'll have to keep watching that. Of course, we talked about the animal control, and I guess there's the group that was put together originally when they had the meeting over here once before. I guess that group has not really produced a solution, but they are kind of regrouping at this point and trying to put together some ideas to come in to see us about, as far as perhaps even forming a nonprofit outside of the animal control, so that they could raise money and they could have that kind of thing. So they're working on that.
So their recommendation that came to the board was to go out for an RFQ, and the RFQ that was produced didn't receive any response. So
being a governmental agency, we have
the requirement was just
requirements that just make it real difficult for volunteer organizations to be able to operate.
In that kind of a relationship, but I think if you're proposing that there's an element of it being spun off that wouldn't subject it to all the same requirements that if you're just in partnership with the county. It's a little different. It's
I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to put a proposal together that would be, for instance, like the Friends of the Library.
More autonomous.
Yes,
than
more autonomous than being actually an extension of the county or partner with the county. It's more like the Friends of the Library operates as a fundraising arm for certain things. So apparently they're talking about that, trying to put together something to bring into us. No deadline on that, but they do know they want to get it in now that we have a new board and getting ready to go into the budget cycle. They're trying to put that together.
Does it actually have feet to it, or is this just
going through the process?
In other words, there was this massive turnout of a full house over there, and everybody less than passive.
Right.
And one would assume that out of that throbbing mass, that there would be some people actually doing something, and now that's sort of petered out.
She met, Diane met last week with the spay and neuter organization because they said they want to help out there. So I guess they're working on some types of things that they can work together on those as well. And I think some of those people are coming out of that group and organizing some more meetings. So I think they're really trying to get some feet under it so that it can actually move forward.
I remember you having a proposal that you drafted in a one-pager that seemed pretty comprehensive and something that we could actually get legs under and do. What I would recommend marrying that up with is another county that's actually done something similar to what we're looking for. There's 36 counties. They all have some element of animal control that they have to accomplish. And very few of them are swimming in money where they just throw it out there. So is it a district that funds it? Is it what's the other mechanism that maybe you could look at and say, we're going to do that. We have a roadmap to get there rather than trying to reinvent kind of a wheel.
Well, you're right. I think the proposal that I had would actually requires a little more intensive management on the part of some of the people to come to some agreements with perhaps the Humane Society, the rescue. There's a couple of rescue organizations here, and then of course the spay and neuter organizations. And I think when this group actually gets something together to come in here, I think we will try to do that, like you say, marry them, because I think that this is not going to have a single solution. There's a lot of things that can be done. And one of the things I asked Diane Hoover about yesterday was when I went out there and visited the shelter a few months ago, I asked about the cats that were there. I said, do you test these animals when they come in for feline FIV, feline immune virus, and for feline leukemia, because those are two fatal diseases. You don't want to be adopting out cats that have that, because then it puts them back out in the general population to spread the disease. And she said they don't. They haven't had the money to do that. However, I think that we need to find a way that we can test those animals because, number one, we don't want to sit there and board them for a month or 2 months or 3 months if they're sick animals. And those are diseases cannot be cured. So putting them back out in the population as adopted animals is not a good idea. So she's going to check into what it would cost for us to test those animals so that we're not taking care of animals that are perhaps not going to live very long, and we don't adopt them out either to cause a problem.
Theoretically, $10 on the front end is going to save $50 in the long run.
It might. Yeah. It might. So she's going to find out about that, and we'll see what that would cost. And I know that they have it's a blood test. They draw the blood from their little paw and just above their paw to do the test. And if we can do that, that might help us in regards to disease control in the cat population, number one, and number two, from keeping a lot of animals around that may be spreading it within the facility. So I think along with the group that's coming in and the proposal that perhaps I had before, something else I would like to explore when they come in, and I have not talked to veterinarians about this, but I know it's done in a lot of other states, is that when people take their puppies in for, or their dogs in for exam and rabies vaccine, is that a lot of states have certificates right there where the veterinarians actually can take the registration for their licensing fee.
We do that.
And they keep a part of that. Do we do that? I haven't.
We do that.
Okay, because I wanted to. I'm disturbed by the fact that we have so few animals that are actually licensed out there. And I know mine just now turned old enough to be licensed, so I'll get him licensed this week. But there's an awful lot of them out there that just are not. I mean,
it is voluntary, and that's a lot of states have where it's mandatory that the vet, and usually it's when they get the rabies shot at 6 months or something. But it's been a voluntary program because the vets don't want to discourage people bringing in for rabies and then saying, oh, by the way, you need to license them too. But most of our vets, I do believe, participate in the program and have it available there for people to license, and then they get a small percentage.
Okay, because I think that should be promoted. But there's so many animals out there that aren't licensed, and having been one that was attacked by a dog out in the county one day, it's not a good thing to say, okay, I've been attacked by this dog, I can't catch the dog, I don't know who it belongs to, but I've been bit by a dog, and I don't know if it has, shots. And unfortunately, I did find out that dog had already bit a child not long before that as well. So we finally did identify the wounded. But anyway, there are things that I think that if this group gets it together, and I will keep in touch with her on that to see if we can't get something moving with the shelter. And the shelter is an old facility. And I asked her about the maintenance on the facility, if because it was old it was causing a problem, and she said it really didn't seem to be causing a problem maintenance-wise. But over the years, there's been a lot of accumulation of just stuff out there that's not used. So she's making arrangements right now through the Spay and Neuter organization to have that stuff removed. She's going to go through and make sure none of it is county property, that it's not, inventory
the board
property.
has to go through a process of designating things.
Right, but if it's just junk that's been piled there because somebody dropped it off, thought they might use it, she's going to try to get that out of there so it's not, it tends to encourage critters, rats. So she's doing kind of doing an inventory right now of that kind of stuff to see what is county property and what is just junk that's been dropped off and accumulated. And so that's my report on that. Today I went down to the Senior Advisory Council at the RV-COG, and they are, of course, doing the CCO planning as well. And the other thing is they're getting ready to do their legislative advocacy for the legislative session coming up.
Are we going to get a list of their proposed things that they're going to advocate on?
They didn't have those put together yet. There's another meeting on February 12th, I believe it is, that I'll go to, and they should have something ready by then. The other thing is...
the session starts on the 14th.
I know it does.
On the 14th. So
I know it does, but they didn't have a list there today. But I can call and ask them if they can email one to me.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And then the one thing that I thought was an interesting statistic that we really need to pay attention to, not just as it relates to this, but as to our county and our community as a whole, is between 2006 and 2012, the Food and Friends program requests for services increased in Jackson and Josephine County by 22%. And that highest increase has been in the age group of 65 to 70. And many of those people are homeless or mobile, living in motels and that kind of thing. So generally half of their services are people that over the age of 80, but it's increased pretty much in that 65 to 70
There's a large percentage.
age group.
So 1,175 that were in that last homeless count.
Right.
And I think there's 335 that were under the age of 18 or 20, but the biggest population is in that section of
the baby boomers.
Yep.
That a lot of them are unemployed and homeless. And
big problem is there's no veterans vouchers in Josephine County. We have 3, and they have a ton in Jackson County. We don't have
none.
Don't have that.
So I thought that was a
very interesting
fact that we need to always be cognizant of when we're talking about any services that we have here. And that's it.
Great.
All I have.
One of the things that I don't know if you're proposing it, one of the issues we've had with the state, and when we had a county subcommittee a couple of years ago, it was recommended was to have public health paid the same as mental health, where we get the monies up front, and then we report on how we spend the monies, versus right now it's a reimbursable, so there's anywhere from 3 to 9 month delay on our payment. So we're providing the service and then waiting for the monies. And so that was one of the proposals that we had requested to go forward to the legislature. And I just...
Is that because a lot of the money is reimbursed through Medicaid?
Yeah, the Medicaid piece we understand and that, but there's state contracts that are funding a lot of the programs that they're done the same way. And with mental health, it's changed a number of years ago where they fund it up front. We get the monies, we flow it through.
I think we have as much of a problem with getting the reimbursement on the federal grant side, like the WIC programs and stuff. I think those do pretty well. It's the state programs, and they're incredibly they're more cumbersome than I think the feds, which is ironic. And what was the other point I had about? Oh, they're constantly changing the requirements. So we had 37 amendments to the state contract with health last year. So you're going to be signing one every week almost. It's on average.
Yeah,
It's just ridiculous.
They'll do a $70 amendment and it's 15 pages. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just...
It's incredibly cumbersome to try to keep up with that.
Well, I know they changed the reimbursement amount on one of the reproductive services from, or was it immunization? Oh boy.
It's not always a bad thing,
From
though.
I think it was $16 or $17, and now it's almost $21, which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's usually in our
Yeah.
favor. I
Yeah.
think it's rarely that they take money back, but
Right.
that's a detriment because you can make an adjustment mid-year, but whenever they take money back. But at the same time, it's still just, really?
Yeah.
So we're doing an amendment. It's
For $70.
Yeah.
Do you have that copy of that report or survey that you did at that time?
Yeah, I should be able to pull it out. It was, we were a subcommittee appointed by the legislature, and there was a number of counties. We met in Douglas County. That report that went there and covered, but that was the number one issue throughout all the counties was the reimbursement process. And part of it with the amendments, because of all the paperwork involved and the time, it really delays that before we get our payments.
Right.
It's just one of those issues.
Yeah. Well, I think that was referenced too, as far as the change in the personnel and the fact that they had to learn how to do some of that coding for that billing that then goes forward so they can get reimbursed. And
Exactly.
so that slows it down as well because they're having to retrain on that. So
Yeah, they had a lot of bumping in their department. We did talk at one time about looking at contracting out the medical billing because it is so specialized, and they were pursuing that when we don't have the resources in-house. And as you said, if you don't code it right, then it really delays it, especially for Medicare and Medicaid.
So if you have that information, and on the on the contracting out, did you talk to them about that, or was that something that...
I talked to Diane, and Diane had some resources she was going to look into, because there's a couple here locally that do that type of work. So she should have those proposals for you to look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Anything you guys are finding that you need? You guys doing okay?
Fine.
You found the parking spot?
I found the parking spot.
So, you're out here right
I'm fine.
now? You're good?
I'm
So,
good.
I'm in the first spot, Keith's in the second, and I guess you'll just be in the third.
Oh, we need to swap. I was in the second, you were in the third.
Well,
Yeah.
you guys can work it out along first.
I don't care. Whichever one's it, I'll park.
So the first three, but
Yeah.
We will not take yours, son.
I just park really close to the wall to give everybody a lot of space. So I've done it a couple.
admiring your fender scraping.
I've done it a couple of times, so never scrape. There's a couple of things. I attended the city council meeting yesterday. I was not able to stay for the entire thing. They had me sitting there for an hour, and we got that worked out for in the future. If a board member's on the agenda, they're going to switch things around over there. But the MPO decision was fixed, and so they included the proportional representation, but did the supermajority provision, which so far over at RV Act I met with a couple of them, and they seem fine by that. Rogue River and Gold Hill are okay, and even Public Works for Jackson County was okay, but I'm still going to have coffee with Don Scundrop. We'll see how that goes. RV Act meeting today, this morning, I attended about the first half. There are 5 presentations out of 18 for STIP projects, and it's a state funding process that they go through every couple of years, and RV Act makes a recommendation based on these certain criteria. There's about 10 of them. The projects that are coming from Josephine County, specifically Josephine County, is the fixed route replacement vehicles. The total request is I think $2.4 million. We're providing just under $500,000 as match for a total project cost of $3 million. Josephine County Azalea Drive, Robertson Bridge Road realignment. Total projects 1.5. requesting 1.3. Our match is 200,000. ODOT's project in Josephine County is a New Hope Road to SB Lane. I thought they just did this thing. No, that's different. New Hope's on the other side. They did Williams Highway. So the total project cost is 13. ODOT's matching funds are 1.3, and their ask is 11.7. The other ODOT thing is the Sexton Pass climbing lane. I thought this had already been in the queue for funding, and maybe that's where they're coming up with the $1 million that they have for match. But the total project's $10 million. What I don't like is the idea that this counts against our proportional allocation for Josephine County when Sexton bypass passing lane for freight does nothing for us. And the other thing is the City of Grants Pass Fruitdale Drive multimodal improvement project. Total project cost is $11.5 million. City's match is $1.25. We might be asked to contribute to that match. Total request is $10.3 million. So on the Allen Creek request, I think they started out at $350,000. We whittled our way down to, I think we agreed to 2. We got a match we got funding from RV Act for $950,000. Came back with the proposal being somewhere around $2.5 million, and the city doesn't have $1 million to make up the difference. So I think everybody on Allen Creek can cheer for a little while that they don't have the funding for that project yet.
Where's this Fruitdale? I mean, what stretch of Fruitdale are they talking about?
I would imagine the whole thing till it goes back to Redwood Highway.
So from the actual Williams Highway,
yeah, probably
doing all the way around the road.
So what are they going to do, widen it?
I'm not really sure what the project looks like, but we can find out.
It is very narrow.
It's a city proposal, even though most of it's a county road. They do that sometimes, which helps us out in the long term of building it up to city standards to relinquish it to the city. That's in the current IGA within the UGB. So that's another element we're going to have to fix, I think, is that IGA, that roads component of the IGA that's tied to the UGB. So all those good.
Okay, the funding matches that we have to put up, does that come out of our transportation?
The ones that we have listed here, the $500,000, yeah.
Comes out of Public Works.
Well, one of them does. The fixed transportation, those will be federal monies. We'll have to put in probably 10% on that. That's what our typical match is for those transportation deals. Probably very similar with the Robinson Bridge Road. It's a $200,000 match. I don't know how it didn't. Bridge road realignment. It's not changing the bridge. It's just the aligning the road to the bridge. So that's not a. We get money for the state has money for the bridge projects as well, and we put in 10.1 cents per every dollar. But that's not that project. No, that's coming out of our road fund. So our reserve now is probably around 2.9 million for that reserve, and it's not building up. We're done building that up, so it's not a good. We need to be very cautious.
Source to build it up.
Federal
That's from
dollars.
gas tax and federal dollars. We have a special reserve fund for bridges and roads.
We've been doing a good job of being conservative with matching the bridge. Taking the bridge, the state has a bridge list prioritization thing, and if you're on that, you get in the queue. Like the Sucker Creek Bridge, it costs us 10% of what the total cost was. It's like $2.5 million, and we had to put up $250,000, which is a deal for a new bridge that's going to last 50 to 75 years. So, but part of that buy down on the reserve, those are the federal highway dollars that we borrowed from for the $425,000 for rural road patrols. The reason I know that's federal money is because, and not gas tax money, is because it is stipulated that it has to be used for rural patrols because it's rural roads money. It can't be used in the city. It can't be used technically on roads that it wasn't mean.
Was that the one-time authorization?
No, it's actually authorized through 2016.
Okay.
We did a one-time authorization as a board to do that. I don't want to do it again. So, but Rosemary looks at me as far as maintaining status quo with $425,000 in the current budget coming out of that special allocation. You got to backfill that. You're not going to do it again next year. So that's a consideration we got to think about. we'll see how it all plays out. Other thing is I had a GIS meeting with Dave Weckner and Rosemary today. Really good outcome of that. We'll have a proposal on the admin meeting on Friday with moving forward for the weekly business session the following week. You guys will do that on Wednesday. I won't be here. In conjunction with the pilot project needs for GIS. So we'll get that. I've asked Dave to make a presentation on the GIS, the executive order pilot project. I think that's important that this board understand what the previous board has done. If you have any questions, if you don't want the presentation, you don't need it. If you're totally up to speed on what the pilot project encompasses, what it's going to be requested of the board and the county.
Are you totally up to speed? Sorry for the interruption, but we're not. So listen. I want to talk, not slow, because I really don't talk slow too often, but I want to talk at a level. Feel free to ask questions. It's going to take a lot of time to come, I think, unless you don't want to know or whatever. So no, we need to know.
No, I think you do. I want you to know, but I don't want to push you into any direction you don't want to go.
You won't.
Okay. Other thing is Wally Hicks came in yesterday for our meeting at 2 o'clock. We did a debrief on his proposals for the 2012-13 legislative cycle. They were good.
Who came in?
Wally Hicks,
Wally
Representative Hicks.
did. Okay.
I think you guys were both out at appointments, so he was looking to try to do a twofer, but he's out next week. Swearing-in ceremony happens the 14th. He's out tomorrow. Might be back on Friday, but you guys can work with him to set up a time if you wanted to meet with him about his proposals. Otherwise, you can hear him from me, whatever you want.
You can tell us.
We can go through it real quick if you want. I've got
Yeah.
it.
Full time?
Yep. I'd like to break by 5. Do you guys have any questions about the weekly business session tonight? Or?
Nope.
It's on Tuesday, right?
Pardon?
It's on Tuesday tonight?
Yeah, the weekly business session is tonight. Yes, this is Tuesday.
Okay.
It's all Monday.
All day.
Is Commissioner Hicks in charge of bringing the drinks for this meeting?
Yeah. I'll bought some drinks, sure, but I can't have them in this building.
I'm telling you that. You know you're in charge. He is deferred a proposal that he was going to sponsor on Parks shared permit revenue. Currently under the system for the last couple of years, there's revenue that's generated by recreational vehicles. I think it's just RVs that are permitted in the state. Part of that money, 75% has gone to the State Parks Association for the last 8 years or so. The reason for that not being a 50-50 split was because they had a huge amount of deferred maintenance. At least that's what they lobbied for at the state. And I think the county park system agreed with that. Well, they've got their deferred maintenance down under control, and we're advocating for it to go back to a 50-50 split. Nothing as far as 75-25, just 50-50. And I think that there's little or no opposition. State Parks Association had no opinion on the matter, which means they're not opposed to it. So it's likely to go forward, which is great for our park system.
So he's doing that this session?
He's not. He's deferred that to somebody else, but he's probably going to be a co-sponsor on that. He's working with AOC, myself, a couple other counties on this assessment shared cost issue, which I think I've kind of vetted a little bit. The districts appreciate all of the same benefits that we do, but they don't pay for any of the assessment and taxation and collection of it. We facilitate all of that for free for the education districts, the water, soil and water, 4-H district. The proposal in 2009, and you might be familiar with this, was not to exceed 2% of whatever the district was collected, whatever we were collecting for the district. Connie's proposal is not to exceed, so she would assess, I think she can do it for 1.82% is what her proposal would be. But it makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways.
I read that bill, the previous bill.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good idea because when you look at your tax bill and you have all these districts, RCC, school district, high school,
It's huge.
Irrigation, whatever, that you have all these districts on there, and we're basically acting as
We're doing it for free.
bookkeeping and accounting firm for them.
We send them a check.
We do the billing, we do the collection, we remit the money back to them. and we do all the bookkeeping in between. the
And it's
tracking.
in their best interest that we're doing as thorough of a job as we can in the assessment and collection aspects of the taxation process. If we're not doing a good job, then they're not appreciating that revenue. And there's certainly an argument to be had that there's a 1.82% margin of error that could be improved upon. So it could be a wash for them. You know, we'll improve our process by having adequate funding, and they won't see a huge detriment or reduction in the amount of.
Well, I think it's a good way too to have those districts who are separate entities share in the costs, so it's not basically put upon the taxpayers who may not even be in those districts.
Yeah.
So because everyone in the county is paying for it, and they may not be in the district.
Well, and what used to happen is the counties were allowed to keep that money for a period of time and they earned interest on it. The legislature changed that, and so there's got to be a turnover within 10 days, so you earn no interest. Of course, there's no interest earned right now anyway. But that used to be helped offset the cost, but now there's no float, basically. So, yeah, the county's bearing all the cost for it.
Is
he working that one then? He is working that one. Okay.
We don't know whether it's going to. The lay of the land for the state, and I think he shares my perspective on this, having worked with the governor. Having a Democrat-controlled Senate and House, it's the governor's show. Whatever he's putting forth, that's what's going to happen. So, getting him on board as a potential solution to some of these crisis counties, because we all face this, that we have to fund the A&T with general funds. There's a way to distribute the load, relieve the burden on the county's general fund, and be able to reappropriate those things to criminal justice. He sees that. So if we can find a partnership with the governor, and I've mentioned this to Michael Jordan, and I've mentioned this to the governor as a real win-win for everybody. The last time,
specifically?
This specifically. The last go-around, the opposition was not from, I think it was from the little districts. It might not have, it's the other way around. The little districts really appreciated it. It's the education district that didn't want to go there. But if they can frame it in a way that it really helps them in the long run to have a really robust and accurate, I'm not looking to try to go out and find new money, but I mean, we need to be accurate there.
Well, I think it would resonate with people the fact that maybe this is why the small ones were supporting it, is because all the taxpayers are paying for collecting money for districts that they're not in. And that's very simple.
There's a version 5 of this public safety document that I just have a note to circulate that out to you once I get it. He doesn't send it to me, but it's outlining a couple of different things that the governor's proposing for. Some of them are pretty drastic. Some of them are not going to go anywhere. I haven't read it. I haven't read version 5 yet. Some of my notes were just courts being paid for. Their space by the state instead of us giving this free rent right now. They possess a third, if not more, of the justice, and they don't pay anything for it. So
do they get this? Do they pay any internal costs for utilities or anything?
No.
Provided all? No.
They offset some of the costs based on jury receipts where people opt to not take their payment. Last year's was $17,000. I think they doesn't do
no, ours is $200,000 plus.
Yeah, $200,000. There was a time when they made those agreements when utilities are probably dirt cheap,
low,
but now utilities
it's huge.
That's all the maintenance and other courtrooms and everything. Done a lot of work up there.
So what is the support for that? Do you think there is?
No.
No support for that.
There's going to be a long haul to get money out of
the court system,
And frankly, I mean, it comes down to politics. Courts is apparently proposing this. They're an advocate for it because they probably know it's dead on arrival. They can look good. It doesn't hurt them at all to advocate for something like that when they know it's not going to happen. So he is leading some sort of a reform on medical marijuana. His proposal has to do with having large corporate type of producers as opposed to like individual, your next door neighbor can do 6 plants and whatever, and you can do it for up to 5 cardholders or having it more centralized, but then also regulated more strictly by the state. I proposed a permitting aspect, so you pay $50 per permit per plant to the county for local law enforcement. And he seemed to think that actually could get some traction with actually the producers, so that local law enforcement kind of changes the thing to where it's not an illegal act that they're performing. In fact, they're actually going to get support from local law enforcement for regulating things like theft and whatever else, vandalism. I don't know how that's going to work, but frankly, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But
did you see the article on the front page of the Oregonian about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, about the doctors that write the medical marijuana prescriptions? To me, there is a medical board issue here.
Oh, yeah.
When there's a doctor that is, 80-some years old who's writing 6,000 scripts, how do you see 6,000 patients to know what their medical situation is? And I think it might behoove us as a state, and I'm not opposing the medical marijuana. I mean, that's not the idea. The idea is it's being abused, and it's causing...
we have a higher number of sick people down here than anywhere else.
Exactly,
state, right?
1 in 4 or something.
Right.
But what that creates is it creates that illegal market. I mean, that's outside the medical marijuana realm that is becoming huge. And whether people realize it or not, the drug issues, whether it's marijuana, and marijuana is a lot with the children, but then it's the marijuana with the drinking with the children. And so we're getting a lot of children, sometimes upwards to 30% of the kids that are 13 years old that have already started experimenting with marijuana and alcohol. By the time they're 18, they're alcoholics and using pot. And it's a sad state of affairs when this is getting to them because it is so readily available because somebody has a medical marijuana card. Somebody more than somebody. Maybe there's several somebodies. And again, it's not an idea that I oppose medical marijuana. It has a place, but it's become a health issue and a law issue.
Yeah, it's become a very wide door for behavior that is not conducive to the county or our civil society.
Well, it's creating social issues.
Sure.
With and this all comes. I mean, children that are using marijuana. I understand from this article there are actually children under 18 that have medical marijuana cards.
They have a special section in schools where teachers and students can go to smoke.
Right, and so when you have that climate going on, and these are children, they start experimenting with other things because their ability to reason, they don't have that yet. Their ability to reason, they start using the alcohol, and and I'm not saying that one thing does automatically lead to another. I'm not saying that either, but I'm just saying that we've created an environment where that has become too easy for children, and I think that those of us in positions of authority need to perhaps lean on the medical board and say, why are you letting these doctors who you can't see 6,000 patients to give medical marijuana cards? And that's one of the requirements. You have to see the patient and diagnose that patient. And they're not. They're just writing a script. So I think the medical board, the Oregon Medical Board, is remiss, in my view. And until people start speaking up and saying, look, we need to enforce our medical laws. We're not coming down on medical marijuana. We're coming down on the medical laws where you have to actually see a patient.
So your proposal is to have the chairman go and talk to the...
No, she wants to have the board sign a letter to the state legislature about this issue.
I think we need to have them investigate, to put some pressure on the medical board, because the medical board, in my view, is not doing their job, and it's creating problems for our counties. That's what it's doing. And, if we're going to have a medical marijuana law, then let's make sure it's used properly.
I agree.
And that's...
I think there's a lot of issues with it.
There are a lot of issues with it, and it's unfortunate because now it's...
Least of which are the actual use of it. People making $100,000 a year growing this stuff, which they're not supposed to be making anything. And then they're getting food stamps, so they're pulling up in their Escalade and buying steaks with Oregon Trail cards. Just, what? Oh, and I'm working every day for what? when, you know,
Yeah, they don't pay taxes.
no, and they don't pay taxes
They
on
don't pay
it.
taxes, yeah.
Well, I don't want to belabor, this is a good issue, though. I think we need to, I'd like the board to start making, you know, writing policy letters to the state legislature on
I think we
recommending.
should. I think that that's where
Huge
we are
deal.
going to make some,
I think that would be
We
the
may-
least we could do. That would be a good opening step, the least we can do, and then
Right.
what happens from there,
Right.
let something else determine that. But,
Sure.
that's the least we
At
can
least
do.
we've voiced it.
Especially with the numbers of medical marijuana people we have, cards have, that is a concern, especially in Josephine County. And to say, okay, we're not saying that it leads to this or leads to that, but we can't comprehend how a physician or physicians in Josephine County can see how many over 1,000 medical marijuana card holders there are here. And of course the answer is simple. They have doctors that do this on a special basis, move around. But
Getting a pastoral type of thing over the internet.
That's right. But is this something that the Oregon Medical Society is comfortable with?
well, they're supposed to regulate the professional standards of physicians, and they're supposed to regulate the requirements that are in place. And one of the laws is that they need to examine the patient. They need to actually physically see the patient and monitor that patient for their medications.
Yeah.
And they simply can't do it if you have a doctor that's writing 6,000 scripts for medical marijuana. You can't see 6,000 patients. It's impossible.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, with nothing further,
okay.
the board is adjourned at 5:02 and will